Hey friends, welcome back to another video. My name is Emma LaFave, and as some of you may know who have watched my videos in the past week or two, I'm expecting my second child, and with this pregnancy I have been craving some weird random food, healthy food, such as green apples, green peppers, and lemons. So today I thought it'd be fun to just paint them. We're gonna try and do a bit more of a detailed version of them rather than my typical loose style. So let's jump right in and start. Okay, so for today's video, I am drawing my pregnancy cravings. Super weird this time around. I remember when I was pregnant with Noah, I was really into orange juice, like obsessed with orange juice. This time I'm really into green apples. Don't know why, but specifically they have to be green. And well, let's chat as we paint. So I'm gonna sketch it first because I do want to make this a bit more detailed than usual. So I'm just going to start with like kind of like an oval and then two circles that are, or two ovals on the side that are just a bit smaller. Okay. And then I'm just going to kind of connect it like so. To get this apple shape. And I'm not too worried about the apple shape because no apple is absolutely perfect. Just kind of a rough outline, but it kind of helps give that apple shape like that. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more for you. There we go. And I am going to erase the inside and just kind of lighten up those lines because I don't want to see them underneath the watercolor. Okay, it's pretty light. Now I'm going to mix my green apple color, and it is pretty bright green. It might just be sap green. So let's get this color, maybe even with a bit of yellow in it. A little bit of lemon yellow, because those apples are bright. So I'm gonna grab, yeah, they're like super bright colored. Okay, I'm just gonna swatch it right here. That might be good for the deeper values. I'm gonna take some off. Just grab a light wash, some of the lighter values, and then I might add a little bit more yellow to my mixture. Like so. And there we kind of have our color palette for this, I was gonna say lemon, for this apple. So I'm gonna start with a light wash all over for this apple. And I'm just using my size 6 brush. I'm painting in my Etchr Lab cold press watercolor sketchbook. Actually, and I'm also going to leave a little bit of white space, like right here, for a bit of a highlight. And I'm just going in really light with a light wash because I always want to put in my lighter values first. Okay, because you can always darken it up, but you can't necessarily lighten up watercolor. You don't use white as much in watercolor to lighten a color. You might use it to make it a bit more opaque or creamy, but not necessarily to lighten a color. So I'm just going in really light, leaving that little bit of white space for that bright highlight. Okay, so we have our first bit here, and then I'm going to start dropping in a bit more saturated color. So I still want it to be kind of light around the top here, and it's going to be most like dark right around the center here and the top. I'm just going to grab a bit more of this sap green over here, a bit more yellow, and just grab some more saturated color, and just I'm going to kind of start going around the center here. And up here is where the stem's going to come out. So I'm just going to kind of mark a deeper area there. So the highlighted area is going to be mostly just around the crown of this apple. And I've never painted this before. This is my first go. So we're going to see how it turns out. trying to like teach you guys, but I'm also like how I would approach it. But I've also never done this, so or painted like this subject specifically. Okay, so leaving that little kind of light area up there. I'm gonna grab some more color and just deepen it a bit more around here, here, and there. So I'm looking at a reference photo for this, okay, of a real apple. I did want to use a real apple, but I am all out because I've eaten them all in my house. I just went down to my fridge and they're all gone. So I was planning on doing a real apple and then, or using a real apple, but I don't have one. So this will have to do. So it looks a little wonky right now. Just gonna blend this out a bit because that's where the stem's gonna come out, like I said. Don't want it too dark up there. And I might even add a little bit of burnt umber just to make it a bit darker. And I'm just going to do some lines like this just to give it a bit of texture, just curving with the shape of the apple. From that peak up here, the crown kind of part, coming down. And let's get a little bit of burnt umber. Actually, there's some already in my palette over here. I'm just adding a little bit more shadow kind of down here. I'm just tapping in that color and then tapping up here. And I kind of want to make this line a little bit more crisp of where it kind of cuts off. So I just washed off and dried my brush. And I'm just kind of smoothing out that line a bit. Okay, I'm going to grab a bit more of that brownish green and just kind of go around the sides a bit. Make it a little bit deeper. And you want to make sure you're doing this all when it's wet. Okay. So there's that. Now I'm going to I'm going to grab a bit more brown, sorry. And just kind of come down here at the bottom. Just for a little bit of shadow. There's going to be a bit of shadow underneath here. Now it looks like there's a bit of a puddle there, so I'm going to dry off my brush. I'm just going to mop it up a bit so it doesn't create a weird bloom, which happens. Like so. Okay, so we're going to let that dry and start on the next one, and then we'll come back and do some wet on dry. So there's a bit of our apple. The other thing I've been craving are lemons. This baby is like a healthy baby, apparently. Wants like fresh stuff like apples and green peppers and lemons. It's super odd. But yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining. So it's a good thing, definitely. Okay, so I'm just going to start off with kind of like a chunky, somewhat oval shape. And I just go round and round to kind of help create that shape I want. And then I'm going to do a little circle at this end, circle at this end. Okay, and then I'm just going to connect. It's going to come in and out for that tip. In and out around the circle or oval. And it can be a little lumpy. Not all fruit is perfect. Like so. Now I'm going to erase the inside. Like so. And there we go. Okay. So I have painted a lemon on here before. So this isn't too new. I'm just going to add a little bit of cadmium yellow and lemon yellow together. And again, we're starting off with a light wash, always with a light wash. So that's a bit too intense. Going to water it down. Find out where your highlight is. So I'm going to put my highlight like right around here. So that's where the lightest part's going to be. I'm just going to take some clean water, make sure the lightest part is right there. Okay, and then I'm going to finish it off with more of the light wash all over our lemon. I find when you're doing things that are, or paintings that are a bit more detailed, you have to really figure out that light source, or at least where the highlights are, so you can pick out your light values and your dark values. Okay, so we have a light wash all over. Lightest part is right here. Now we can start adding in our deeper colors. So more saturated color. I'm going to start off with the bottom and then work my way closer to the highlighted area. Just gradually moving it up. And I'm just using cadmium yellow. And when I'm doing my strokes, I try and do them in like along with the curve of the fruit. So I'm not going straight. I'm actually like curving my strokes. Okay, and it just kind of helps it look like it's moving a bit better. So if you're wondering like, why the heck are we painting fruit? This is so weird. Learning how to paint more detailed objects is also a really great exercise. My brain doesn't work. So even if you might not want to paint a picture of this for like to frame or give to someone, it's just a great exercise to, you know, try something a little bit different. Okay, so I'm going to try and blend this out a bit. Wash off my brush completely, dry it, work from the highlight out, and then just try to blend it out. Okay, now I'm going to add a bit of orange to it. Or we could do yellow ochre, which actually might look a bit more natural because it has that little bit of brownish tint to it. If you don't have yellow ochre, you could always use a tiny bit of purple and add it to your yellow, like a tiny bit of purple. And it makes like a yellow ochre color. Oh my gosh. Shade. I think I was trying to say shade. And I'm just going to go along the bottom here. And it has texture, so I'm just going to do some dots like this. Okay, give that lemon a little bit of texture. Like so. Very, very light. And when you're doing this, you want to make sure you don't have a lot of paint or a lot of water on your brush because then it will take over. Okay, I'm going to wash that off. Grab a bit more of our cadmium yellow, and I'm going to do some more dots in the cadmium yellow to give it a bit more texture too. And up here too, around where the highlight is. And then I really want to deepen the shadow a bit more, so I'm going to take more yellow ochre and go really deep around here where the shadow would be. Oops, I almost lost my brush there. I might even grab a bit of burnt umber to get some deeper shadows in there. Okay, and then that little kind of bit on the tip of the lemon, like so. And you can even do a couple little dots like that. Like so. Like that. And there you go. There is our lemon. So for that we used cadmium yellow, really, really light wash of cadmium yellow, and then like some yellow ochre. Just swatching it just so we can see the colors that we used, and then burnt umber. Easy peasy. All right. Okay, and then the last fruit, nope, not a fruit, vegetable that we're gonna do is green pepper. Don't know why. I mean, I've always loved green pepper, but I really love them this time. Super weird, but they're delicious. Okay. You know what it is also, I think, is that I have been so thirsty. Sorry, you're seeing my face now. I've been so thirsty with this pregnancy. I've been like downing water. And I feel like green peppers just like are so fresh and full of water. Like they don't really have a taste. They're just fresh. And so like it kind of quenches my thirst. If that makes any sense. I don't know. All right, so let's sketch it out. I'm going to do a tall oval shape, kind of like it's coming to a point down here. It's smaller on the bottom and then bigger on the top. I know it's a little hard to see, but I don't want to go too dark. Like that. And then I'm going to do another one here. And I'm actually going to connect it to the bottom of this, like that. Then I'm going to do another one, it's going to be slightly a bit more up here. And this one's going to have another bump of its own. Like so. And then back here, we're going to have kind of like a bumpy back here, and we're going to have a big stem coming out. And then one more kind of bump coming out to the side here a bit, and then kind of ending above. Does that make sense? And then let's draw, oops, don't put your hand in the lemon. We're going to draw the stem coming out of here. This might be the more difficult one to do. Okay, and then it kind of is a little bit more bigger at the top, like so. I'm actually going to make this a bit bigger. But again, don't worry too much about the shape. They're all different shapes, right? Does not have to be perfect. Okay, so now I'm going to just lighten this because you do see the separation in some of these sections. So I'm not completely erasing the inside. Okay, I do want to see some of that separation. All right, so with this one, because there are, like I said, some separations, and I want to highlight, I actually might use white ink for this one if I really need it, but I want to highlight kind of around the tops of the bumps. So I'm going to start off really light. I'm actually going to use my size 12 brush. And it's a bit more, it's kind of like the apple color, but it's a bit more deeper. I might actually use some Hooker's Green Dark, sorry. Yeah, it's more of like a Hooker's Green Dark color. So I'm going to mix the two of them like that. And then I'm going to wash off a bunch of it in my jar. And I'm just going to do a light wash, even lighter than this. And I'm using my size 12 just because this is a bit bigger. And I want to cover as much surface area as I can without it drying. I'm going to leave the stem separate. I'll do the stem after. Like so. Just kind of making it evenly wet. Okay, I'm going to wash off my brush. I'm just going to throw it to the side. I'm going to use my size 6 now. I'm just going to wash that off, make sure it's clean. And I'm actually going to lift up some of the color here, like that. Just wash and dry off your brush, lifting up some color around, again, kind of like the crown of this pepper. Just dry, like that. Okay, now we're going to add the deeper values. So grabbing more paint on your brush, and I'm going to go around the edges first, starting kind of at the middle of the green pepper, like so. I'm going to leave a little section here so there's a bit of a highlight in between the sections. Now actually what you might want to do, I'm going to wash off my brush completely. I'm going to wet these areas so it blends out well. It blends with the rest of the area that we're putting in, like the darker area. And I'm just gonna, because if it's too dry, you'll get that cauliflower effect. So just want to make sure it's still wet so you don't get that weird mark. And I'm just gonna drop in this darker color around, hold on. Oops, sorry. It's going to be darkest at the bottom. So I'm just kind of going over those sections. And when we do some wet on dry, it will be a bit more detailed looking. Add some darker bits over here. Oh, it's already started to dry on this side. And back here too. So just wetting it up again, grabbing some more green. Oops. And I'm just trying to go over those shapes again of the sections. Oops, I think I actually messed that one up. I think this is supposed to be a highlight here. Oh man, it's fine. Told you this one was a bit more tricky. So I might actually wait for it to dry and then do the sections at the same time, or at different times. Okay, but before that, I'm just gonna drop in some darker color. I'm gonna grab a little bit of purple, mix it with my green, just to get some deeper shadows down here. Just while it's still wet. Like that. And then around the stem back up here. Okay, I know it looks weird right now, but once we add that shadow, it will be a bit better. I'm just gonna kind of outline. Like that. All right. Okay, so now let's let that dry and then we will come back to that one. I'm gonna come back to this apple because this apple is now dry. And we're gonna do the detail on this. So I think I'm gonna start off with my green color, just the regular green mixed with lemon yellow. Sorry, you can't see it, but I wanna give you guys an up close look at what I'm doing. And I'm just gonna kind of do a line like this, making it a bit darker and crisp over here. Like so, right there. And then I'm gonna wash off my brush, dry it a bit, and then blend out over here so it kind of blends. You don't really see that crisp line over here as much. Wash off, dry, there we go. You want it crisp right there, if that makes sense. I'm just gonna grab a bit of burnt umber and put it in there. Like so. See how it kind of creates that depth? Okay. And then with a really, really light wash of the green, like super light, I might still just kind of add some lines so it looks like it's curving still, like the lightest wash. Like that. You can even do some dots. It looks like there's a little bit of like white dots on the apple too. Just gonna blend it out like super, super light, just to give it a little bit of texture. You don't want these lines, like that might be too dark or deep. But just for a little bit of texture on this apple. Taking the lightest wash possible. And if it looks too dark, just kind of tap it with your finger to lift some of that paint up. It's a bit darker over here, so I might add a bit more over there. And then let's just take a little bit of white watercolor if you have some. If not, actually I have my white ink, Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White Ink. Okay, I'm going to take a tiniest little bit of it, whatever's in the lid, and I'm just going to tap. And if it's too bright, again, remember, just take your finger and kind of lift some of that paint up. But there's a little bit of like white dots on this apple too, like that. Like that. Okay, and if you want to add any more like, what's it called? you know, like lines or highlights. You could definitely do that. That's looking pretty realistic to me. I want to make sure that this center is dry before I add that stem, so I'm not going to do it just yet. Let's add a little bit of darkness towards the bottom of the apple. So I'm just going to take some burnt umber and I'm just going to add it to the bottom. Just to make it look like there's a bit more of a shadow down here. You can even take a little bit of black if you wanted to, like the tiniest bit. One of my biggest tips when doing detailed stuff, try not to have a lot of paint or water on your brush. I'll add a little bit of darkness up here with the black too. Okay, because you don't want to overwhelm it. All right. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to wait for that to dry to do the stem. Our lemon, I think, looks pretty good. We could always do, you know, a bit more. I'm going to grab a bit of burnt umber, a bit more of the darkness. So I'm doing wet on dry, right? So it's pretty crisp like that. But then I'm going to wash off my brush, dry it, and I'm going to blend it out. Just so it's not a harsh edge. Okay. Grab a bit more darkness. You can do some dots on there if you want. Grab a bit more darkness. Maybe some over here a little bit. Wash off my brush, dry it, blend it out. Okay. But I don't want to do too much more. I might grab a little bit of like cadmium yellow, do some more textured dots, like the lightest wash, like there's barely any paint on my brush. And again, if like the dots seem too dark, just dab it with your finger. Okay, and then again, you can even take your white if you want to and do some dots with your white, especially by the highlight, like that, to give it a bit of texture. Maybe you could even do some down here too. Dab it. Like that. All right, so there's our lemon. And let's just make sure that everything's dry before we do any more. Okay, so now that's dry. Before we move on to the green pepper, I just want to get this stem on my apple first. I'm going to take some burnt umber. I just realized it might be a bit too green right there. Should have left some space for it. That's okay. And I'm just going to do this little stem with the brown. Actually, no, it's fine. It covers it pretty well. Like that, coming right to the edge there. Like so. Perfect. All right. And now our last one is our green pepper. So let's start off with a lighter wash for that stem. Actually, I'm going to use the color of the green apple, so that kind of like lemony, limey color. Because it's that color. It's like a bit more of a pale green. Like that. Don't want it too dark. It's a little bit too wet. So I'm just taking up some of that pigment. I'm going to grab more color and I'm going to just darken it around the sides. Like that. Might even grab a bit more of like the green pepper color and again just darken the sides. And if it's bleeding too much into the middle of the stem, I'm going to grab my paintbrush, wash, dry off, and just kind of lift up some of that color in the center. Like that. Okay, and there's our stem. So now let's crisp up the edges here. So like I said, I'm going to do one section at a time. I'm going to grab my green pepper color, and I'm just gonna go around the section like this. Like this. I think it was like, I think I remember how I did it. Like this. Okay, and before it dries in that line, wash, dry off your brush, and blend out that line so it's not a harsh line. Okay. You want to see the sections, but you don't want it to be a harsh line coming inside. Okay, you want it to blend out. There we go, and it just kind of separates that section for us. So you can have the harsh line on the outside, but on the inside you want it to blend nicely. So again, wash off your brush, dry it, and just blend it out, like so. Okay, and if you want to add a bit more deeper color in there, grab a bit of your purple to mix it with your green, and you can just sharpen it at the bottom, maybe around the top just a bit, and around the sides. But again, wash, dry off your brush, blend it out. Like that. Okay, and then we're going to do this side, but we're not going to touch over here. So we're going to go around the outside. Like that, and before it dries in that line, make sure you wash off, dry your brush, and blend it out like that. Okay, just need a bit more color. Deepen it down here. Okay. Blend it out. There we go. Other side over here. Same thing. Not too much on this side because we're going to have to blend it out, and I don't want it to go into that section too much, the next section, so I'm just going to blend it out more up here. Wash and dry. Get more color. Make it a bit deeper with that darker green. Like so, and then I'm just going to deepen over here with the dark green and over here. And again, you don't want it to be too splotchy. Wash and dry off your brush. And blend it out. I think that is the biggest technique when it comes to doing detailed things, is doing the wash and dry and blend it out. And this is good practice for that. And there we go. Okay, so then the last thing I want to do on this, in the picture I'm using, there's all these highlights on the top, I guess from where the light source is hitting. So I'm going to take some of my white ink to do that. But I want to make sure that it's dry first, so let's make sure it's dry. Okay, it's dry now. I'm going to take my white ink. I always put it in my lid. Actually, I might need a bit more for this one. Okay, and I'm just going to go around some of the top, like the crown here, and just do some highlights. Now it could look good, it could not, I don't know. You could always skip this part, you don't have to do this. I'm just gonna give it a try. I feel like there's highlight in here. And there's highlight over here. I might even go over like this highlighted part here with some of that white. not too much. There's a bit more highlight on this side too, I guess where the light source is coming from the photo. Just gonna blend it out a bit more. And you can always use like a white gel pen if you have one. And I'm just using the tiniest bit, because I don't want to overdo it. Like that. And I think that looks really good. So I'm just going to swatch the colors I used again just for these mixes. So I used Hooker's Green. I used Sap Green. And then I also used some Dioxazine Purple to make it darker, which ended up being this dark color. Okay, and there we go. And one funny thing I'd like to add is that right now my baby, apparently, according to my app, is the size of an apple. Last week it was the size of a lemon, and in a few weeks it's going to be the size of a green pepper. So this is totally appropriate. So there we go. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. I really hope you liked it, and I hope you learned something. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram for even more. Also want to give you one more reminder that I have launched my Patreon in October. It's going really well, and I do want to give you a little preview of the things you would learn this month if you've signed up to be one of my patrons. We did this fun fall landscape, which ended up turning out really well, and I loved it. It was such a fun experience being live with you guys and chatting and helping you out. And then the other bonus tutorial you got was this in-depth how to paint some fall flowers, as well as how to arrange them into a bouquet. So if you guys are interested in some extra little perks of being one of my patrons, make sure you click the link below in the description, head over to my Patreon, see if there's something there that, sparks your interest. If not, don't worry, I will still be here on YouTube. I'm always gonna be here, but if you want those extra little perks, make sure to check it out. Thank you guys again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and follow me on Instagram for even more. Have a great day, guys. Bye.